I saw a beam of light everywhere. And then the moment I saw those beam of lights, I thought to myself, the rapture is here.
It's like in the corner of her eyes, seeing like a little boy or like a little ghost going to one of the rooms.
It's a journey in the self too, because you find your intuition and discernment. But we got to realize that there's duality here.
Maybe 6 or 8 times over the course of a couple of years, I would wake up to this dark figure standing at the foot of my bed.
The green agenda is the obliteration of the human soul. They use children to do that. They can't do it without children. They need pure souls, and you cannot conduct a black mass without pure souls.
When you see that there's darkness, Satan exists, or that there's evil on earth, or that there's actually demons or whatever, I think it's a frequency when we're all together, really.
The light started like flicking off and on. So it was like a toddler, like a 5-year-old or 4-year-old.
At one point it started to gruff. I heard howls. I heard like this puffing sound, and I was petrified. I had no idea what it was.
Well, the demons are here, and they are going to steal the children.
Welcome to the show, everybody listening to Apocalyptic Anomalies, where we shine light on the shadows to unlock all the secrets of our universe. I'm your host, Abner J. Valdez. If you have a crazy experience or story you want to share on the show, email me at apocalypticanomalies@gmail.com. That's apocalypticanomalies@gmail.com. Or you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. Either way works for me. Just get in contact with me. Today on the show, we have Mario. He comes on the show to talk to us about his very intense UFO experience. So let's get into the show right now. Sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Mario. Welcome to Apocalyptic Anomalies. Mario, before we start the show, can you give the audience a brief bio about yourself?
Yeah, this was, well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. About the bio is, this account is about, an extremely close encounter of a UFO that, I saw in Corpus Christi, Texas in September 1st, 1998.
All right, Mario. Thank you for that brief bio. And, can you go into your experience, your encounter? Can you start us off, kind of like plan a story for us from the very beginning, how it all started, how it all went down?
Yeah, the first second that it started was the day before, on August 31st, 1998, at about 10:45. My brother and I had went to a bait stand downtown, where when we got out, we first noticed that the water had gone completely flat. There wasn't a wave or a ripple, or there were no birds, there were no cars, there were no people. The boats weren't rocking. There was just no noise, and we thought it was just really weird. So we didn't really think anything of it, but it just felt like something was really off, something was really strange. So we just went home, and we waited for our parents to call us because we were waiting for my mom to get out of surgery. So we were just there until about 3:00 when the call came in, and that's when we went to go and see my mom.
Okay. And can you walk us down your experience? How did this happen? How did you feel when this happened? What were your thoughts? What was running through your head when all this was going down?
Everything was fine. Everything was normal, except for that water going completely flat. And it looked like mercury when we saw it, like liquid mercury. But as soon as we got the call and we went to see my mom in the hospital, we noticed a very intensely bright whitish-blue light from about 8.4 miles away. We didn't know what it was or what it was doing, but directly beneath that light, there was a massive black object, and we couldn't tell what it was. So right when we saw it, we just thought, like, that's pretty weird, but it's probably like a helicopter, like flying in to like evacuate somebody that had been in a real bad accident. So as we continued to drive down, we had the windows rolled down. This thing never made a sound. So driving forward, we noticed that it started doing, it was probably about 20 feet off the ground. I had never seen anything like it in my life. It was doing these little grid patterns where it was kind of, it looked like a 3D printer motion, back and forth and side to side. It would swoop down, it would swoop back up, and it would just keep repeating these same motions. So we we knew that we were supposed to go and see my mom in the hospital because we had blankets and pillows and stuff like that. But our curiosity got the better of us, and we kept going. We passed our exit off the exit ramp from the highway, and we just kept going. We wanted to see what it was. So we were coming up on this thing. We are probably about a quarter mile away from it, when it started. It looked like it got interrupted from its patterns that it was doing. It just kind of stopped, and it pivoted upward a little bit, and then that's when it started making its way toward us. And it was a very strange motion I had never seen. It was probably about a little bit around about a mile from our car. But as soon as I realized that it was coming our way, it got there to the car in less time than it took me to take in a single breath.
Wow. And how long would you say this street was, or this bridge was? How long was this bridge from the point where you start the bridge to the point where you end it?
Well, at this point, we hadn't quite reached the bridge yet. We're probably about an eighth of a mile off from the bridge.
Oh, wow.
When this thing initiated its first intercept of our car, and when it did that, when it got to the car just like that, it took us a while to realize that it had just reappeared by the car so fast, and its motions were very, very strange. It moved like a snake, like a serpent, like a great serpent through the air. And when it moved, it was very serpentine, just like this. Like it had all the time in the world. And at one point, it sort of dipped below the freeway from where I could spot it. It just reappeared right by the car. That's what just flashed its light on. Like it looked like an explosion in the car, and we were just blinded. And for a second, I thought I had died.
Oh, wow. That's pretty intense stuff right there, man. So when you said for a second you thought you had died, did you feel like you lost track of time at all?
Yeah. As soon as I saw it, like, we're right across from this thing, about a mile away from it. It had a light on the top of it, which I refer to it as its primary light. And when I looked in this light, there were like all the colors in the world in it. But right as soon as it started making its way toward our car, I kind of yelled out to my brother. I shouted out to him. I said, "It's coming this way." But the words themselves came out in this super, super slow motion, like, "It's coming this way." And as soon as that happened, everything just slowed down, and everything it felt like we were just moving through water, like real thick water or syrup or something.
Wow. So going back to when I first came up to your comment in the picture, right, that you have on your profile.
Yeah.
Can you explain that picture? Because I saw the disc shape on top. What is it under the disc? Like, explain that picture to us. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, I can put a description on it on the episode when I edit it, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I'll make sure I put a picture of it up there.
Yeah, right below that disc, I've done a little bit of research on what that disc is called. And what I found out is that portion of the craft is referred to as a ring cowl. Right below that, was the body of this thing. When I made that sketch, that was at the point where it had intercepted us for the second time on the bridge.
Oh, wow.
When I saw its body, it's kind of like revealed itself to us or to me, um, like on the sketch, I had kind of like made like lines going below that disc portion of it, and those were to represent the grooves that it had on it. They were like these very intricate grooves that it just it blew my mind. It seeing that from a distance of less than 15 feet away,
Wow.
it was hyper symmetrical. It's hopelessly advanced. You know, I was just in shock at that point.
Wow. Definitely very interesting stuff right there. Definitely something that would leave you in shock. So you said when it came around the second time, so it came around one time, did like a snake motion. It
Right.
came around another time, right? And that's when it flashed the lights on you. Boom, right? What were those lights that it flashed on you? Do you feel like it was brighter than anything you can ever explain in our world, in our reality? Or was it something that you can explain like a flashlight or something?
No, this thing was this light that it had on top of it was like it wasn't like any light I had ever seen in my entire life. And I've grown up and here in Corpus, there's a naval air station nearby. So we're
Oh,
like
wow.
everybody from this town is used to seeing like the Blue Angels and like air shows, and the the place where we had the encounter, my brother and I had been fishing there only the night before. And when it came up onto the car and it flashed us with that light, what it did was it dipped below and it was like an assault of light right into the car. And when I put my hands out like this to like block the light, that light was just passing through my hands and it filled the entire car. It felt like I could almost touch it, you know. And when it did that, like I had these little I had these little images or visions replaying in my head, like this really intensely bright light, bright sun rising in a dark night. It kept on doing that like over and over and over and over while I was just in this stunned like position. And when my vision resettled, it took me a while to realize that, oh, okay, I'm not dead. And the other thing is we're still driving. This car is still moving right along.
Yeah, definitely some very scary stuff right there. You guys could have fell off the bridge. You guys could
Yeah.
have gotten to an accident. Do you feel like this was some type of weapon, some type of, something that, maybe a distraction so you guys can't see what is in front of you? How did you feel that, or what did you feel that light was when it hit you?
When the light hit us, bro, I just want to say, like, the second I saw it from the incline on the freeway from over 8 miles out, I grabbed my heart and like I knew what it was in my heart because I had seen this thing. I had seen something quite similar before. I had been waiting for it to make contact, I guess. But when it did that, when it stunned us, I just realized that it was kind of like it did it on purpose to just like stun us, and it worked really well because afterward, when my vision started settling back in, I looked and around all the windows for it, and I couldn't find it until I looked through the front windshield. I looked up, and to our 11 o'clock, it was hovering right above us. I would say like less than about 15 feet away from us, and that was when I noticed that at its base, it had a red strobe. And this red strobe was very intense, but it was sort of soft at the same time, and it was just like glowing, just kind of like glowing like that, the strobing. And I had realized for a second that what it was doing was it was mimicking my heartbeat, you know. So my brother and I, we just
Wow.
sat there stunned, you know.
Yeah, man, that's very intense stuff right there. Because when you say it's mimicking your heartbeat, now you're not messing with something that's not, something that you're messing with something that's very smart, very intellect, right? And when you said you saw it, when you first saw it, you kind of grabbed your chest a little bit, like you know what this is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It almost feels like it sees you, and then you see it, so it's kind of like
right,
it's a predator, it's
right,
like it's coming for you, you know. And a lot of people when they go through these encounters, alien encounters, they see those lights, right? boom, hitting them. And then you said time kind of slowed down a little bit. It almost feels like they were trying to pull you into that, you know, because a lot of people, when they have those encounters and they do the hypnosis regression, they feel like those lights, they saw those flashing lights, right? That's the last thing they remember, and they feel like they died, right? Like you said. So it almost feel like they were trying to pull you into something. Can I ask you something? You can answer this if you want, but what is your background? What is your faith like?
I'm a Christian. I was born and raised in the church. Just very conservative Christian. We just read the Bible. We pretty much just go with whatever the Bible had said. You know, we try not to like get too much to take away from it or take too much out of it. But I gotta say, my faith has pulled me through all this time, and when I finally accepted what I had seen, it saved my life.
Yeah, it almost feels like that. It almost feels like your faith, right? You believe your faith in God saved you from that situation. And that's really what I kind of want to come across, because a lot of people go through these situations and their last hope is, God, get me out of this. Jesus, get me out of this, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, they're out, right? It's like that's the only thing that has power to conquer those things. It's a very amazing, you know, the story that you went through. It's very compelling stuff, man. From your details that you're telling me and the picture that I saw, the picture doesn't do it justice, you know?
Yeah.
It almost feels like the picture, I can see what you're trying to portray, but those grooves and everything made it seem like something else. Because I definitely see the disc on the top, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't understand. I didn't fully understand until you kind of broke it down in detail. So, Mario, from your perspective, from what you think it was, in your opinion, what do you think it was? This craft, what do you think it is?
Well, I've been trying to like, nobody's ever going to be able to tell me what it was. The only thing that I can tell you for sure was it wasn't us. You know, this, whatever it was that was flying this thing, it was not human being. It was not humans. You know, the thing was too big. The things that it did, it was so intelligent. Like at one point, it brought to light a thought that I had in my head about what I thought it was going to do. And right after I had that thought, it just kind of pivoted upward and back again. And it put those exact thoughts that I had into mind, like into action, you know? So it definitely wasn't, something like stealth, some kind of stealth craft like that the government was working on or something like that. Not it.
So I could run down through the list of things, right? Was it an airplane?
No,
No, right? Was it a helicopter?
absolutely not.
Right. So it's like airplane, helicopter. They have other things like fighter jets. Definitely loud. I mean, I've been in the presence of those fighter jets when they go by. They're definitely loud. Definitely the thing that you encounter was very quiet. I have heard of stealth bombers. You don't hear them till they're like a mile away. This wasn't that. This was definitely, from your perspective, from what I'm pinpointing out and what I'm hearing, it was definitely a unidentified flying object, a UFO, you know? And a lot of people have encountered things like this, you know? So it's like, a lot of people, when they talk about this stuff, a lot of people tend to dismiss them, right? It's like, nah, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You were probably doing this. You were probably doing that, probably on drugs, whatever the case may be, right? They dismiss it. I'm a big believer in those things because at the end of the day, if you look back, right, and we can talk about the Bible, if you look back, because my background is biblical, right? I believe everything that the Bible says. So when I hear that people have these encounters, you know, it almost feels like they're testing your faith, you know? What do you believe? You know, do you believe in this? Do you not? Right? Who are you going to call out to when you're in trouble? Right? And a lot of times, like you said, your background in your faith is you believe in God. So they kind of had to pull away from you because you had that protection over you. Whether it was your mom praying for you or your grandma, maybe an aunt, maybe an uncle, anybody praying for you. At that moment in time, you had that protection over you. And I'm a strong believer in that faith. So I guess what I'm trying to get to with this, you do believe it was UFO. And what I was saying earlier, we can go back to the biblical text, right? And it talks in Genesis about the fallen angels, right?
Right.
And we know in our time and age, they like to masquerade themselves as different things, whether they're stars or UFOs. And the way these objects were moving, the way you explained it, is not like a helicopter or an airplane moves. That means it had to be something else, whether it's a physical thing or a spiritual thing that comes in and out of our dimension. I think what you saw was an UFO. And I truly believe you, man.
Thank you.
This is very intense stuff. Is there anything else you want to add to this story? Anything else that you feel like you can help the audience with details and stuff like that? Please feel free, man.
Yeah. Right after its first intercept, and it right after I noticed that strobing light below it, it me and my brother, we were both kind of I don't know. I just want to say, like, I felt like we were put under a spell or administered like a very potent narcotic or something. Because right after that, like our heads, like they started kind of like nodding, like making this motion like that. And as we were looking into the light, we are just like, and it felt like an eternity. And our bodies were doing that, and it was just like completely involuntary. And it only lasted for a few seconds, I guess, but after it kind of after that thought passed into my head and it pivoted backwards, I looked over to my right because I kind of felt like I broke out of that hypnotic trance. I looked over to my right, and about a quarter mile of a way to my right, I saw these two. They look like small single plane, maybe Cessna aircraft type, with their commercial beacons on them. I saw them descend to ground level, like almost one atop of one another. You know, I'd never seen that before. Right when I saw that, I knew that they were so scared they just had to get out of the air. And I know that whoever those two pilots were, I mean, it's not going to be something that they're ever going to be able to figure out what it was. And I've been waiting to see if anybody else has said anything, but I haven't been able to find any answers so far. And that's why I've been, you know, making all those posts on Facebook. Just I'm trying to find those witnesses, you know. So um, I looked back to my left. I saw where the craft was going. The car was still moving forward. There was no swerving, no braking, no anything. And it started making its way out towards the water, out towards the Oso Bay, parallel to the bridge. Where this bridge is located is called the Oso Bay Turnaround. Um, and as it started making its way over the water, it the light on top of it, it suddenly switched to this. It looked like a rising sun. Like it started just growing like this very slowly, but and it rose in the air about 15 or 20 feet. And all of a sudden, just everything in that area was just bathed in this rich, intense gold light. And I could see the water like bouncing the light bouncing off the water. I could make out every single detail of the whatever was across the bridge for about, I want to say about a 2 or 3 mile radius. Everything was lit up like a sunrise. And right after that happened, there were like these little starbursts that started kind of appearing in the air everywhere. And that's when I saw it looked like these beings, these very, very large beings that appeared just ahead of that craft. I want to say there was at least about 5 or 6 of them. They were right in front of the craft. They just like manifested right then and there, and they started making their way towards the bridge. And after that happened, um, we kept driving, and I just kind of had to snap back to reality. I took my eyes off of this craft, and I turned to look at my brother to see if he was all right. And he was, you know, really stunned, like he wasn't saying anything. So as we started to make our way over onto the bridge itself, um, I turned to him and I shook him by the arm, and he was just completely unresponsive. He was gone. Up here he was gone. Like his eyes were just wide open. His mouth, his lower jaw was just fully extended, and he kind of had this little hunched over motion over the wheel, and it was just super weird and really scary because I had to I had to accept that it was just me now. It was just me all by myself in the passenger seat, and I was alone with this thing. So as soon as I took off my eyes off my brother, I started looking out the windshield to see where it was, and I didn't see that light anymore. It was gone, but I did see this gigantic black mass, like right by the bridge. It was just right there in that area, and it was undeniable. I thought it was like I wanted it to be a nightmare, something that I was going to be able to wake up from and go home and be with my family. But right as soon as right as soon as I made eye contact with it, it it sort of started to lower itself. It was as if this thing knew what I was seeing, that I could see it, like as if this thing knew exactly what I was thinking. And then it started to play this kind of like this game of hide and seek with me, and it really, really got low, and I couldn't see it anymore after a while. We kept driving over the bridge, and right, we were in the left-hand lane of our lane. Right as we were coming over the bridge, this thing started doing this approaching the bridge very rapidly, and it came in this weird motion. It started coming toward the bridge, just so close to the bridge that I thought it was gonna hit the bridge. I thought we were just in immediate danger. So what I planned to do was reach over to the steering wheel, grab the steering wheel, and just pull us over and into the bay below. But right as I put my body into motion to do that, the thing just stopped, like immediately, instantly it stopped. Like it was playing chicken with me, right? So right when it stopped and I stopped, I kind of felt like as if we both had me and this craft had this moment where like, okay, like it knows what I'm doing, I know what it's doing, and we're officially engaged. We're both, if two entities are officially engaged with each other. It blew my mind, and that's when it started an ascent, and I could see that from the bridge area. It had like a steeple on the top of it, and I'm gonna do more sketches, and I'm gonna do some paintings too to better provide some details on the craft itself. But as it started to rise,
Yeah.
and that with that steeple form on the very top of it, when it got close to the light posts that were on the bridge on each side of the bridge, I noticed that the light posts, the light coming from the light post started, as they started to like the rays started to like writhe and ebb, and as if in the presence of this darkness, like the light was being smothered or something. And I was like, man, I kind of I lost it in my head, but I never said anything. I never screamed or anything. The whole entire time, I'm like, I kind of wanted to pass out because the blood is just draining from my head, and I'm having to like flex my legs to send it back up to keep me conscious. And um, so as it reached the peak in its ascent, this is the really messed up part. Is it started from that disc portion of the craft. It started this motion, this 360-degree motion, where it started moving this really, really weird way like that. And that's when that disc portion came into full view. And right when I saw it, I was like, in my head, I was
Wow.
like, man, they exist. These things really do exist. And just right after that, right after it stopped, I thought it was getting really, really close. But what it actually was doing was it made itself like gigantic, like more than in excess of 80 feet in height. This thing was bigger than the bridge, and it was just there. It was just like mere inches like away from the bridge, and that's when I started to feel. I wanted to right when I saw that, I wanted to pray to God. I wanted to pray. I wanted to ask God for forgiveness. I wanted, just nothing more than to just pray to God and prepare to die. But just as I was
Wow.
about to start praying, that same sensation came over me, like I had been drugged or something. And I don't know. It was really weird. I felt absolutely terrified. I didn't know how to act, but going forward in the car, um, I don't know, like from one moment to the other, it just seamlessly transitioned into absolute terror and to just complete peace. Like I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't losing it. I could breathe again, and I suddenly understood like why it was there, what it came for, and what it wanted. So I basically just had to make a decision. Like I knew that it was that star that I had seen before when I was 15 on my roof 3 years before. It wanted to know whether or not I was gonna go with it. Like there were no words or no voices or anything, but it was just this sort of instant like knowledge in my head, this understanding. And I mean, I love my family way too much. I love them more than anything in the world. And I kind of just told it in my head, like I presented an image to it of my mom, my grandma, my brother, like holding each other, like hugging each other in front of our house. I was like, I can't leave them. And at that point, right as that thought went through my head, did the same thing, like with body language, just reversed and pivoted, and it just started instantly retracting itself through that 360-degree motion. And right when it was doing that, that super black cloak came back on. It dipped below the bridge, and it just made its way out back out towards the Gulf. And that was it. Like all the time, like real time came back into motion. I reached over, I grabbed the wheel, and I steered us off the freeway, and we hid like under the underpass for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Man, very intense stuff, man. Wow, I have so many
Yeah.
questions. What do you think that the black thing, the black cloak, the black blob thing was that you saw? What do you think that
It
was?
it must have been some sort of it looked like dark murky water, like you can't see through it at all, or like a cross between that and really black smoke, or like a black veil. And it stayed like
Wow.
that before the first intercept. But after the first intercept, and it perched itself above our car, it from that strobe I could see that it was starting to blend in with that primary light of blue and white on the top. When it did that, it kind of casted a sort of indigo tint to the body of whatever this thing was, right? And I could see, like, I could make out more of the body than before, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't see its body clearly until it began the second intercept over the bridge.
Wow. And in your opinion, right? In your opinion, why do you think this happened to you? Why do you think it chose you? Why?
I figured it all out as soon as the encounter was over. I knew exactly why it happened, and it was because like my whole life I've always kind of felt another presence somewhere like around, but we couldn't see it or something. There's always been something with me about water. Like I've always had dreams about water. I've had this sort of fear of like deep water and stuff, but I've always sort of felt this presence that's had been nudging me towards doing something very, very strange. And I noticed that when I was a kid, every time I would float on my back on the water, I couldn't sustain it for more than about maybe 5 or 10 seconds before I started to feel like I was gonna get sucked into the water or something, right? And what had happened was I kind of figured it out that I'm gonna check this out, see what it is. And I tried it in the bathtub at home when I was 14. And when I did that, like people, I never knew what it was. I'd always been trying to find what that was, and I only found out 25 years later what it was. And the best I can describe for you what the experience entailed was what people refer to as astral projection. You know, and back then in 1994, nobody knew about that stuff. You know, like we didn't have the internet like we do now, like everything's 5G now or whatever. We didn't have none of that. And we're just finding things out for ourselves. But when I did that, I felt like I had been pushed down almost like into the earth, and I had sort of accessed like another dimension. It felt like where all time, I just slowed down. I could find out anything I wanted. That like all the answers were there in that sort of dimension, a state of mind. And when I came back from it, I felt like it had been like months that I was gone, even though it had only been a few minutes. And what really scared me about that was that after that, there was virtually nothing that I couldn't figure out. And what scared me even more was that, you know, grown adults like my uncles and my mom and my dad, they all started coming to me for like advice on, you know, grown up adult issue things. And I was like, no, it's overwhelming. I just kind of left it. I just kind of abandoned it. It was too scary to handle, you know?
Yeah, it almost feels like you have a gift, because I feel like God gives everybody gifts, and some people might think their gift is a curse, but it almost feels like you had a gift maybe of knowledge, a gift of something they wanted, because when you said you kind of knew why they were there, right? And you knew what they wanted, but you made a choice, right? You made a choice to be like, no, my family's more important than, what happens if I go with you or whatever, right? And that's the choice. That's the battle that we all have, right? The battle between the good, the bad, because you don't know what would have happened to you. For all you know, you could have ended up in a different place, not knowing, or maybe, some people even have encounters where they've had experiments done on them, and then they bring them back, and then they have to go through hypnosis regression and remember all those tortures and all those bad stuff that happened to them. It almost feels like the enemy, right? Because I always bring it back to the biblical sense. The enemy kind of portrays himself as an angel of light, right? I'm good. I'm good. Everything that's bad is good, right? And then they trick you. Boom. Now you're stuck, right? Because you have to make that choice to give up your spirit, because I feel like God can only take your soul, but your spirit is willing, right? Maybe if you would have made that choice to go with those entities, it could have been very bad for you. I'm glad you didn't make that choice. I'm glad you had that, that gift of knowledge, right? Like you said when you were young, right? To make those decisions. Maybe another person in that perspective, maybe in that position, wouldn't have made that right choice, just to see the unknown, but I'm glad that you're still here with us, man. It's very, very interesting stuff, man. Definitely feels like you have a gift from my perspective. Going back to where this happened, can you give us a little background of this port, of this area? What is this area like? What is this port? I believe you mentioned the name. I just can't recall it at the top of my head right now.
It's called the Oso Bay Turnaround. Is where it's an actual bridge over the water that leads into a neighboring town called Flower Bluff. And right in that area, there's I've been hesitant to like talk about it because because of all the things that we just don't know they we hear about. But probably about within a mile of there, there's a naval air station right by there. If you Google map the Oso Bay Turnaround, Corpus Christi, Texas, you're gonna see right right in that area, there's a naval air station right there. And other than that, there may be an airstrip. There's like a Texas A&M, Corpus Christi is right there. There, there's not really all that much out there, but that's about that's about as much as I know from that, from the surrounding area.
Wow, that's very, very interesting stuff right there, especially when you mentioned the military stuff. We know, I mean, we all know nowadays where the military do experiments and they try to reverse engineer certain things. So it's very interesting stuff right there. You know, it's like, what is really going on? Are they trying to open portals possibly? Are they trying to see into a different dimension, which brings things into our reality, into our dimension? Maybe things that we don't comprehend, right? We as people, we like to see movies and shows that are kind of like science fiction. It's fake. But what if those shows, what if those things that we see is based on truth, real experiments, real things that people are doing behind the scenes that we don't know? An example, Stranger Things. I don't know if you've seen that show, but that show is very, very interesting. It almost feels like they're trying to do things to bring things
Right.
into our reality, you know? So it's very interesting stuff, especially with, you know, that area with the military stuff and that encounter that you had. I want to touch back on that encounter you said when you were about 15 years old. What can you tell us about that first encounter that you had? I just want to see what's going on because it almost feels like you made that first contact and they kind of been following you ever since to trigger you and to get you at that moment, that perfect moment. It's almost like a predator, like I said earlier. So what can you tell us about that first encounter, Mario?
That first encounter that I had, that first sighting, yeah, it was again, it was like August 31st going into September 1st, like right on the dot, around right at the exact time, around after 3 o'clock. I had gone onto the roof of my house because it was just way too hot. We were up late. There's no school. It was boring. I just wanted to get up there and take my mind off, catch a cool breeze. So, but I was up there. I was sort of leaning back against the roof and just looking up at the stars. And this star out in the distance, out in orbit, just caught my attention. It was stationary, but it was very bright. It was a white and a blue and a red, right? And it was just sort of, strobing out, just I didn't think anything of it. Had a lot on my mind. And right as I was about to go inside the house, I turned and looked at the star, and out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw it move. But I was like, dude, you're tripping. It's time to go inside and go to sleep. And right as I looked back toward the same star, it instantly just like pop, pop, pop like that. It made this like Z pattern instantly, just as faster than my mind could comprehend. When I saw it, like my body reacted faster than my mind because my mind saw it, processed it. But by the time it had already happened, my body was up in the air onto my feet. And I was trying to run back into the house, just jump off the roof. And as I began to run inside the house, man, again, everything started going in this super, super slow motion. And it felt like it took years to get off that roof. Once I jumped off the roof, it felt like it took many more years to reach the ground. But after I reached the ground, I ran inside. I closed the doors. I locked the doors. I drew the blinds. I turned off all the lights in the TV. And I hid in my room, and I was just waiting to see if this thing would come, if this thing would come for me. And right when ran into my room, I just kind of, I hunched myself over. I felt like as if I had turned gray inside, and I wanted to vomit. I wanted to puke my guts out because of what it made me think. I was like, I was in shock, but I just stayed there in a sort of fetal position on the floor for a long time until morning, and I couldn't go to sleep until then.
Yeah, very scary stuff, man. I can only imagine as a young a young man seeing these things, it's very, very interesting, but it's also very scary. I'm glad that everything was okay, and I'm glad that nothing happened to you, because it could have turned out a different way. So, praise be to God for that. It's very interesting stuff, man. And you said you had, as a young kid, you felt like you astral projected, right? What, in your opinion, what does that feel like? Because that has never happened to me. The most that has ever happened to me when I'm sleeping and stuff like that has been kind of like paralysis. I feel like I'm stuck, but I'm awake. And it happened to me one time, and I felt like something was on my chest, something holding me down. And I kind of snapped out of it, but it took me to say, Jesus, in the name of Jesus, go away, in my mind, right? And that just kind of left. I got scared and I tilted to my side. This happened to me when I was a teenager, and I never slept facing up ever again after that. Now I kind of sleep to the side. I make sure that, I don't feel like maybe I was choking. I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, it feels like those things try to trigger you when you're at your weakest point, and try to set fear in you. So going back to what I was asking, how does that feel for you when you astral project? What can you tell
Yeah,
us about that?
I from what I hear from other people, some people they want to experience it, and some I've heard a lot of accounts of people who describe things exactly the way that I felt when it happened to me. And some people say that it takes them, I don't know, months or even years, or they even never experience it. Something that people try to master. But what what stood
Hmm.
out for me was that I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have it happens automatically. And when I began, I've never tried it since, because it's a very scary experience. It's very intense. You I felt like I knew that my body was still in the tub floating over this water, but like in my head, in my mind, I'm going to an entirely different place. And over the years, the best sort of thing that I could liken it to would be maybe one of those gigantic like slides at a water park or something. Like one of those huge ones where it's got like 3 or 4 stories of just twists and turns and tubes and loop de loops and all that stuff. There's just all this inertia that's very intense, all this pressure. That's what it felt like to me within about 5 to 10 seconds of floating in the water. And at first, it's like I feel like something is like tickling like my back, like along the back of my neck and all the way down onto my toes. It just feels like fingers tickling all there. And all of a sudden, it's just like wham! You're just plunged down into the earth, down to blackness, and you see like in movies. There's a lot of
Wow.
movies that that do very well in trying to capture uh, this sensation, as you feel like that slide is just going through the earth. At one point, it just sort of curves outward and upward, and it just launches you out there uh, like in orbit. And from my experience, what I've seen, well, I could see
Wow.
the like the curvature of the earth, the side of the earth. In my mind, I'm freaking out, and I can look down at my feet. I look down at my body and the earth, and what I saw was this it looked like a sort of umbilical cord that was coming like from my back. It looked like this tube. It looked like this tube of
Wow.
light that was all the way down into like rooted into the earth. And from there, like I could go anywhere, I could do anything. Time just did not exist in there.
Wow. That's very intense stuff, especially for that to happen to you at a very young age. Wow. Mario, this is very interesting stuff. I'm sure the audience, is definitely going to enjoy hearing your story. Is there anything else you would like to share here with me and the audience? Please feel
Um,
free.
yeah, actually, there is. The reason I wanted to do this podcast, and I really appreciate you the invite. I really appreciate that. Uh, the reason I wanted to do this in particular was because not only to find maybe the other witnesses who may have seen this the same UFO, but like I said, 25 years it took me to accept what I had seen. I wanted to believe that yeah, it was something stealth, something top secret, something like I was trying to make up in my mind like it was a hot air balloon, it was a prank, it was anything but what I knew it to be. And it took every minute, every second of every day, it just the whole entire thing of the direct face to face encounter with that thing played over and over in my mind. And that's just something that's very it's extremely difficult to process in the human mind because when you're dealing with that sort of stuff, man, your faith really comes into question, and you begin to experience a existential crisis when you're able to accept what it was that you've seen, because everything else comes into question. And man, I came very very close to not making it. Um, and what I want to do more than anything is that I know that there are other people in the world that have experienced things like this and who they don't have anybody to talk to. They're struggling. Man, some people just haven't made it, you know, and man, my heart goes out to them. I want to say to those people right now, hang in there, you know, just the most important thing you can do is start to talk this all out, you know, write it down, get the facts and your stories together, get your account together, and you know, you can get through this. Don't worry, like don't question your faith in God. You know, stay true, like stay faithful. God will get you through this thing. God got me through this thing. I'm out of the labyrinth now, and man, I'm here. I made it. You know, so I mean, praise God,
Amen.
hallelujah, amen. You know.
Amen, man. That's very, very compelling stuff right there. And I'm glad you made it out of that because, like you said, a lot of people go through these encounters and it almost feels like it puts some type of pressure on them and they can never live their life the way they were intended to live. And I'm glad that you were able to come on the show. And I thank you for coming on the show and sharing your experience, you know, because this also molded you to be the person that you are. It might have taken you this amount of time to tell your story. However, you came forward and you shared your story, so it is much appreciated. I want to say thank you for coming on the show, and I'm glad that you overcame this because at the end of the day, you kept your faith strong. And like Mario said, if there's anybody out there that is listening to this story and wants to come forward and maybe help Mario out with a witness, somebody that might have saw the same thing or a similar thing around the same area, or maybe a similar experience, please reach out to Mario, please reach out to me, and we can get you guys talking about this and possibly come down to some type of maybe a conclusion to what this all can and possibly might be. So Mario, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. It's been an honor to have you on the show, man, and keep your faith strong. Please don't hang up the call because I want to talk to you a little bit after this. But thank you for being a guest on Apocalyptic Anomalies. Thank you for watching the show, everybody. God bless. Thank you. Thank you for watching the show, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. And I want to say thanks again to Mario for having the courage to come on the show and sharing his intense experience. I know it wasn't easy to do, so I appreciate it. Keep your faith strong, brother, and keep believing in God. You'll definitely be in my prayers. And remember, guys, to share the show because that's the only way that the podcast will grow. Make sure to give this show a 5-star rating and review on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts or anywhere you guys might listen to the show. And if anyone listening that has had a similar sighting in Mario's area, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay blessed, and remember to innovate honesty and always illuminate the truth. Bye.